Hey everyone, welcome to this week's $1,000 strap search. I've got my 1,000 and singles here. I've already gone through them and we're about to check out what I found. And before I do that, let's talk about this week's tip. I just wanted to let you guys know that when I go to banks, I will buy 1,000 singles at a time, but I will not deposit 1,000 singles at a time. I will go to a couple different banks and drop off 1 or 200 there. And I do that for a couple reasons. I mean, the first reason, obviously, is no teller wants to have to go through 1,000 singles and count them all. They tend to get a little upset, especially if they're busy. But the second reason is it allows me to go to different locations. And I always try to keep something on me, some bill of interest whenever I go into the banks. And that way, when I do make my deposits, I can, just flash whatever bill it is and say, hey, have you ever seen anything like this? And that lets the tellers know that I do this sort of collecting. And that gives me eyes and ears out there for all kinds of things. My special bill today that I'll bring out later on, I happen to have gotten because of such an instance. But yes, you want to do that not only for tellers at the banks, but also for your circle of people you deal with on a regular basis. It could be a customer, it could be an employee, it could be an employer. It doesn't matter who, as long as they know that you're into paper money, because that way they'll also keep an eye out for stuff and say, hey, I found this. Is this worth anything? Or, hey, I've got this $20 bill. I'm just going to spend it, and you can get it at face value from them. So that's my tip for this week. Make sure that the people that you come into contact with are aware of what you do. All right, here's my 1,000 and singles. Let's get these out of the way. These, as you can see, have definitely been circulated. They are pretty trashy. I was able to find lots of stuff. The problem was condition. So let's take a peek what I got here. I did find a Where's George. There's track this bill at where'sgeorge.com. I'm going to run that one right away. It is a stamp that I recognize, and I'm sure the person who stamps this is really excited that I search bills because I tend to find a lot of that person's bills. This bill was extremely crisp, and it caught my attention. Look at this. That serial number right there looks like there's additional green ink over the top of the I, over the top of the O, over the top of the 8, over the top of that 0 as well. So this particular bill looks like it's got some extra inking on it. It's a minor ink smear at best, but it is something that I don't see very often, so I decided I was going to pull that. I did find a lot of trinaries. This one is 6s, 7s, and 9s, 0s, 1s, and 8s. I've been checking these for binaries and repeaters and radars. And these are the ones that are the easiest to find as far as all of those radar numbers and repeaters and stuff, because you're only talking about 3 digits. This one, what is that? 5s, 7s, and 8s on this one, 0s, 1s, and 8s. Another neat thing about collecting trinaries, 3s, 6s, and 9s on this, is if you have a stack of trinaries, you are more likely to find bills that have the exact same serial number, because obviously you're only looking at 3 different digits. So to find a bill with 3 different digits, this one's 3s, 5s, and 7s. If I was to go through my stack of trinaries and put all the bills with 3s, 5s, and 7s in a pile, I would have a chance of finding 2 bills with the exact same serial number. Just to pull 2 random bills with the same serial number, almost impossible. Yes, it can be done, but trinaries is a good way to try to do that. This one's 3s, 4s, and 5s. Another one with 0s, 1s, and 8s. 5s, 6s, and 7s on this particular one. I did find some quads. This one is quad 0s at the end. When you find quad 0s at the end, it's interesting to point out that when this bill was in its original strap, the very first strap it was ever in, having 000, having the 2 zeros at the end, lets you know that this was the last bill in its particular strap, because the first one would be 1, and then as they get to 100, the last 2 numbers would be 0. So that's just its location when they printed it. Let's see, what do we got here? Quad 4s on this particular one. And then I did find some stars. Not a whole lot of interesting stars, but I did find stars. Let's see. A lot of these are 2013s. This one is really bad. Hopefully not worth anything. I do go through all my stars about 200 or 300 at a time rather than each individual one because, like I said, you go through 200 or 300, you may find one or two that are rare. I don't want to be disappointed 197 times before I find one that's actually worth something. And this one's a little older. This one's 2009. Another 2009 on this particular one. And the oldest star node I found was 2006, and it's still in decent shape. Did find a couple older bills. This is 1999, still relatively crisp. Another 99. This one is also 99, not in the greatest of shape. What do we got? 1995. Always checking to see if it's a Webby. And another 95. And this one is also a 95. So that's all I had this week. There was the one with the extra green on it above the serial number. That was kind of interesting to find. I did find one Where's George, so I thought that was neat. But now for something worth a little bit more. It's worth at least 100 times more than any of these, I can tell you that much, because it is a $100 bill. This is a $100 bill. You can see here the series on this particular bill is from 2006A. The serial number, like I pointed out in the other one, it ends in 00. So when it comes to the stack of paper that this particular bill was from, this was the last bill in the series. And that's actually rather important because you'll notice that this bill has an additive. Check that out. You can see a very hard crease right here, which is where this paper was folded over before the cutting, and that's where we get this extended piece right here. So this bill has, it's obviously a cutting error that's attached. You can see that it's not taped or anything, even if I flip it over on the back. Once again, that crease is very evident, but that is one solid piece right there. And that's caused by when they move the stacks to the cutting machine, one of the pages gets folded over before they cut it. That's why you've got this line and this line at the exact same angle. That's where it was folded over, so you can see how the cut was made. Now you have to be careful with paying any additional money for cutting errors like this. First and foremost, they can be worth quite a bit of money when you find them. But the other problem is they can also be faked. People will buy uncut sheets and intentionally miscut bills, hoping to make them more valuable. Luckily, I have a book. And when I go into this book, the first thing I want to show is in the back where they talk about uncut sheets. And when you look at uncut sheets, here we are, uncut sheets of small size notes, they start off going back as far as 1928, and it tells you the denominations. So right away you have an idea of how possible this is. Now, the particular note that I have, like I said, this one is a 2006A. So my first question was, did they make $100 sheets available to the public in the 2006A? And if I look, you can see the dates for $100 bills. The only uncut sheets they made were 2009A. Some of them had 4, some of them had 8, some of them had 16 per page. So they did not make $100 uncut sheets available to the public in 2006. So that bodes well for this a little addendum here being legitimate. Now, the other thing that bodes well for it is the fact that the serial number ends in 00. That means this was the bottom sheet, which makes it highly likely that this corner could have gotten folded over. And the other thing that I looked at was this number right here, this E1. When I looked at my uncut sheet of singles, I looked to find where E1 was. And E1 is at the at the top of the sheet. If you were to cut the sheet in half, this would be the top of the sheet, and that would be the corner that would be at the bottom of the lowest bill in that stack. So it's pretty likely that this is a legitimate error. So what does something like this run? Well, you always got to check multiple sources on stuff because different things will say different prices. So what I did was I first checked this Black Book Price Guide of Paper Money, and they talk about, let's see, here's the title on it right here, cutting errors, and they go through all kinds of different stuff about the cutting errors. They talk about minor cutting errors where it's just barely touching here. They talk about, moderate, where you can see portions of the other bill. And then they talk about major cutting errors, like this one here. Well, here's what they list for prices: 25, 50, 100, 200, 500, 1,000, 250, 500, 1,500. What I have here doesn't really fit in any of these categories. I mean, I'd love to say it's a major error, but it's not off cut like this. It's, got a fold over like this particular one. And the ABP is about buying price. So they're showing $250 for about buying price, and Very Fine, they're showing $500 on that particular one. And once again, that's also for a $1 bill. Errors don't add a lot necessarily based on the denomination, but a $1 bill versus a $100 bill, obviously the $100 bill should be worth more. So then when I busted out the big book, the big book was also a little vague. Paper money errors. Right here they show a bill that is seriously, has a serious fold and a huge cutting error. And they list this cutting error at $2,000, $3,500, and $5,000. Now, yes, having that much of another bill on there, I could see that. But that is all they really list as far as cutting errors. So I don't have a set price on this particular one. I would love to say that that my bill in F12 is worth $2,000, but you guys be the judge. I know I can go online and see all kinds of stuff like that, but it is definitely a freak note, and everything about this bill says it's legitimate. So I was not disappointed picking this up for slightly over face value. So that's what I've got for you guys this week. If you learned anything new, go ahead and hit that like button. If you like what you see and you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all my new viewers, and I'll see you guys next week.